Hello, my friends, and welcome to segment 7 of getting ready to greet that wonderful Chag of Pesach. First, I would like to just send out a reminder, which is obvious, but I want to make sure that please, one of these nights of these segments may come out on a Friday night. Please, of course, do not listen to this on Shabbat. So before we get to the utensils and koshering out maybe my silverware, my glasses, and my pots, I want to tell you a story as we're getting closer to the Seder. And this Seder, this story, if you listen to it and you remember it, it would be wonderful if you told it over to your children, or the children told it over to the parents. Whoever's listening to this can say the story for Seder. There was a fellow who used to raise money for his organization. He used to go around the whole world, and among going in the world, he used to go to France. And he had certain people that he called up, certain people that he visited every year, and they gave him a nice donation. And one year he called up one of these fellows and he said, "It's time of the year already that I'm going to come. Do you mind if I come at this time?" He said, "Sure, come, Rabbi." He said, "I just need a favor. I didn't arrange for a place to stay. Would you mind if I stayed at your house for 3 nights while I'm there in France, and then I'm going to leave to go to England? Would you mind?" "Of course, Rabbi, come." And the first night he arrived there, and he was tired from the flight. And the owner of the home, the rich guy who was going to give him a nice donation, gave him a nice dinner, and he gave him a nice guest room, and he gave him a place where he could work with a phone that he could make with his phone calls to make arrange the meetings. And he said, "Take it easy, Rabbi. I'll be next door. If you need anything, please call me." The fellow started looking around the room. He was sitting in the nice, beautiful dining room of this wealthy fellow. And he was walking around and looking at the room, and he saw in the break front, where you have knickknacks and you have your silver and you have your nice fine things, he saw a few shards of glass, broken glass it seemed like it was from a bottle, that were broken. They were clean, but they were laying on the shelf, and he couldn't understand. And as he was looking, the owner of the home came in. "Oh, Rabbi, I bet you're wondering where that glass come from." He said, "Yes, what is that all about?" "Rabbi, you have time for a story? Sit down." And he told him the following story. He said, "When I was 17 years old, I grew up in Holland in a wonderful family, and I went to yeshiva. I was a good yeshiva student. I was very, very observant of all the Torah and mitzvahs. And one day my grandfather called up. He had a store here in France. He had a store, and he needed my help, and it was the end of the school year. He asked my parents, 'Would you mind if your son comes to help me with the store? I'm getting old.' 'Sure, let him go for the summer. He'll have a good time.' I went to the summer to help out in the store, and I fell in love with it. It was such good work, and I was good with it, and the store business was booming. And after the summer, my grandfather asked me, 'Please, could you stay on?' I talked to my parents, and I decided to stay on. But the Yetzer Hara, the evil person inside of me that gets me to do wrong things, he's a smart guy. And I was busy in the store till finally my grandfather stopped going to the store altogether, and I took over the whole store. One night, I had a customer coming very late with a big bill he was coming to buy, and I couldn't leave the store early enough to go pray Arbit, to pray Mariv with a minyan. It was the first time, I still remember like yesterday, I forgot and I didn't pray with a minyan. And little by little, that was the way of my life. I stopped going to minyan. And soon I stopped praying Arbit altogether because I was so tired. And soon I had to go to work very early, and little by little, I fell away from being an observant Jew. I was there in the store. I still live here. I stayed here for years. And then when I was 22, I married a local girl here from France, but also not religious. And my religion was completely gone. One night in December, I was walking home around 5 o'clock. It was getting dark already. It was December. I was walking home from the store to my house, and I saw up ahead of me a bunch of boys on the floor with one fellow laying on the ground, a little boy crying. And I went over. I thought maybe they're bullying him or they're hurting him. I went over and said, "What's the matter?" And they told me, "Look, I saw on the ground a bottle of oil that was broken. It was shattered." And the boy was screaming, "What am I going to tell my father? What am I going to tell my father? What am I going to tell him?" The boy's father saved up money. They weren't wealthy. He saved up money to buy olive oil because that night was Hanukkah. And he broke the bottle. He was playing ball, and the bottle fell over and it broke. And he's crying. He doesn't know what he's going to tell his father. Right away, I said, "Come, little boy." I reached out. I picked him up, and I took him in my hand. And I said, "Come, we'll go to the store. I'll buy you a bottle." He could not believe it. He was so happy. He was so smiley. He was so excited. I bought him a bottle, and he walked home. The smiliest boy I ever saw for his home. And as I was walking home, I passed the place where the bottle was on the ground, and I looked at the glass, and I said to myself, "How could I even forget that it's Hanukkah? Did I forget even the Chagim? What am I going to tell my father? What am I going to tell my father when I come upstairs to heaven? What am I going to tell him? I was brought up, I knew about it, and I felt so bad, and I picked up the glass to remind me, and I came home, and my wife was looking at me, what are you taking this glass for? But I washed it out in the sink, and I put it in the break front. And then I went upstairs, and I dug out some candles from Shabbat, and I set it up in a Shabbos candle holder, and I lit one candle. And I even remembered the brachos, 3 brachos you make. I remember that. I couldn't believe it. I said the 3 brachos, and my family's looking at me. What am I doing? And my sons, my wife, but I did it. And every night for the rest of that week, I lit a candle for Hanukkah. And my children started asking, and my wife started asking, and little by little we started learning, and we came back, and today, as you see, we're a fully observant family. Why? Because of that little boy who called out, what am I going to tell my father? So I saved those pieces of glass to remind me always that a small little thing can bring you back to Torah. We too. We could drift off. We could forget things. We brought up certain ways or we're not brought up certain ways. But things can let us astray and we can forget about Torah. We forget about mitzvahs. We're coming now to the Chag of Pesach. A small little statement can bring me back all the way. Hashem should help us to remember our ancestors, our great-grandparents, how they celebrated Pesach, how people in the Holocaust celebrated Pesach, even though they had a hard time. And we have an easier time, even though this year it's a little difficult. We pray to Hashem, please help us that we should